Hi everyone, this is Nikki Jameson here. I'm a digital artist, and today I'm going to do another video on creating a background using a few different brushes and papers. So in my previous video I started by placing some painted backgrounds on my canvas. So I set up my canvas, and it's a blank canvas here, and then I brought in some papers here. So this is one of the papers that I'm painting on. I added some paint strokes and some different colors to it, and what I did is then I just blended them. So I alternate by selecting, or sampling I should say, color, and adding that color to my canvas. Now typically I work on different layers so that if I don't like something I can just fix it without too much of a problem. It's also good to kind of understand which brushes you want to use, but for this demo we're just going to experiment with some of the brushes, because even though I've done videos of them and I've used them, these are the Corel brushes and I don't use them as often as I use my other brushes, so some of them could throw some surprises. So right now I'm using the textured stipple, and I'm in the oils bravura, which is a category that I have done some a video of, so you can always go and look at the brushes there and you'll see what I've done. Now bear in mind that I have used different papers there, and I've used different brushes in different circumstances, so you have to, as I said in that video, you have to experiment. So I'm using a canvas here called knifed canvas, which is fairly dramatic, and I've got the settings turned up fairly high, so if I pick a grainy brush or a brush that picks up grain, it's really going to show through. And the textured stipple is a brush that picks up the paper grain fairly well. So the first thing you do in creating a background, and as I said, there are a lot of ways you can do that, is I like to add a lot of paint and then blend and then add more paint. So this looks like it's all over the place at the moment. In fact, you can actually get some nice abstracts doing this, but what I want to do with this one now is I'm going to try turning down the reset, my brush is 107, let's see what happens, turning down the reset and then just seeing what we get. So if I turn down the reset, it's going to turn into a blender brush, and you know what, I can find better blenders than this one, so I'm going to try the rough oil first of all. It's a really great way. Ooh, this is more add the paint. However, I know that if I make it if I reset it, let's make it a smaller brush. That's nice. So right now I have the reset at 100%, so it's gonna lay down paint and color here. And let's go for this purple. It's actually a dark purple, and let's put down some paint there. So one of the nice things about Corel Painter is that it tells you the last few brushes that you use, which can be a godsend, because there's so many brushes that sometimes I really struggle knowing A, what the brush does, and B, which one I used last. So I'm just putting some marks here. So we can use some of these brushes as blenders, so let's try let's see what happens there. I'm going to make the brush a little bit bigger, and let's hope Corel cooperates, and then I'm going to try blending. Okay, so this is going to not lay down color. Get rid of that black. I don't know why that black is there. When you go to the edge of a canvas in Corel Painter, sometimes you get that black mark at the top. So what this brush is doing now in its blending state is blending the paint on the canvas. You can get some really nice effects doing this. Now bear in mind, if you're creating abstract painting, this is probably a really good way to do it, or to start it. Right? There are no limits apart from the limits that you put on yourself. You can create your areas of focus, you can create it with color, with texture, even with embellishments, you can bring different paper textures in and you can blend. The knack is knowing which brushes work for you. Now, if you're doing a background, if you're creating a background that you're going to use later in another, let's say in a collage or a painting or for a photograph, you probably want to make sure that these colors are as muted as possible. Really depends on what you're going to do, and the reason is that you don't want the background to overtake the actual focus of your piece. So backgrounds are usually quite subtle. You can create them yourself, you can create them with texture, but you have to understand how you want them to show up, or rather not show up, as the case may be. So I'm gonna see what happens with my texture stipple if I go back and make it sure it's reset. So if I want to add a little bit more, let's say some light, I could use this white. It's not going to pick up paint actually, it's just going to, let's just move that up a little bit. I'll just put down, I don't want that. So I can put in some areas, okay. So it's going to pick up whatever I sample, which I wanted white. I don't know why it's not putting white. Oh, you know why it's not putting white? Because my reset is still fairly low. So I'm going to take this is all trial and error. You never know what you're going to get. I'm just going to take the reset down and just blend, put it on blending. And I can go to another brush, maybe rough edge blender. It's one of my favorites. And with the rough edge blender, I can get just a little bit of action there. It's a really nice brush. And so I can build the backgrounds up in an abstract way. If it picks up grain, it will pick up the paper grain. I could turn this down. You can rotate your paper grain as well, or rather rotate your paper. And what you can do is just build up, create these areas of light and dark, and maybe use these as backgrounds themselves. Here's another one that I've been working on. I've actually closed these layers. So if I go onto this layer here, this is a slightly muted, this is a more muted color, which is perfect if you're going to, you would really take it down, but you'd keep some of these colors in. And quite frankly, what I would actually try and do is find a brush that really, really sort of did this blending. The rough edge blender is great, but ooh, let's see. Let's try brushy. Not at a reset of 100, but at a lower one. So brushy is fine. It does an okay job. It really does. Again, it adds a little bit more detail. So if you want something really smooth, you would have to maybe play with this a bit. Maybe make the brush, if I made the brush smaller, I'd have more brushes. When they're small, they're easier to control as well. But you could add more paint to this particular layer, okay, and have that as your second layer. You can also, this is another layer I was working on. You can also add more layers, and then you can change the blend mode of some of these layers. Oh, it's a bit dark, but interesting. I've changed that to gel, and I get something completely different. If I change it to one of my favorites, like multiply. Okay, that's interesting. It's not showing it much. If I change it to overlay, I get something else again, because the blend modes play with the light and dark, and the interaction of the different layers in the piece. Okay, so you can really use layers to a very good use layers well there. Okay, so I would probably play with this a lot more. I would probably try and experiment. Grainy is a good one. Ooh, see, gotta try these things out. The reset is 100. Okay, so for the reset is 100, grainy will put some texture down first, right? So if you want to, let's increase it a little bit. If you want to add some more texture, you can do that, and then you can take the reset down, and then this doesn't want to really reduce the size. Then you can just kind of paint in, reduce the detail of this particular brush. So good way of adding texture. Just understand that the reset controls what the brush does. Okay, and because it's picking up grain, it's also picking its here, and because it's on overlay, in fact, let's put it back to normal, it's going to look a little bit different from if we put this on normal. So look at the difference there. That is really, really startlingly different. So you can get some interesting texture, interesting, let's open this one. This is one that is really, really smooth. I was working on before for the previous video. This is a little too smooth for me. I'd probably add more paint to this and more texture. I love more texture, but if you were doing something you just wanted a really subtle background, this is what you would probably go for. Oops, I was not even painting on the layer. Oh. That's great, Nikki, great job. Okay, so you can continue to add. That's what I would do. You would take the reset up, keep playing with the reset, take it down, and you can produce some really nice layered effects, just like that. Alright, I hope you've enjoyed this video. There's obviously a lot more you can do with painting backgrounds and creating backgrounds in Corel Painter. Adding and subtracting color, using the layers, using the blend modes, and really just going to town and seeing what you can create. There's really no right or wrong way to do this, and you just have to see what works for you. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you in another video.